Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, I'm going to share with you guys Pascal triangle. Now given an integer number rows, you have to return the first number rows of Pascal triangle. In Pascal triangle, each number is the sum of the two numbers directly above it as shown. So basically the first row of your triangle is always going to be 1. And the next row is going to be um, 1 and 1 because it's going to have two numbers, and then the third row, this is going to be added. 1 and 1 adds up to give up the middle element. And remember, always the edges are going to be 1. Okay, the edges are always going to be 1. And the middle elements are going to be added by the previous row elements. Okay, that means the previous row elements will add to give you the middle element of your next row. So you can see here in the third row, 1 and 2 adds up to give the middle element 3, and 2 and 1 will add up to give the middle element 3. And in the next row, 1 and 3 will add up to give 4, 3 and 3 will add up to give 6, 3 and 1 will add up to give 4. Now, you can see here how it's been generated. It's been generated like first row in a list, the second row in a list, and third row in a list, fourth row in a list, and fifth row in a list. How it's been given is like this. Okay, is being given list inside a list. Now let's see the coding. We'll be typing this from scratch so you guys can have a pretty good understanding of why each line is coded. We'll also look at the dry run, so don't worry. So first, we are going to create a data type. This is the return type, so we need to return exactly of this return type. So you can just copy this and paste. This will create you a list inside a list like we have taken a look here. I'm going to name it as triangle is equal to new. Now this is a list. Remember, this is a list. We are creating a new list. We are creating a new list, but the data structure we are storing inside the list of data type is list. Okay, so that's why, but this is just a single list. Okay, a single list is storing a list inside of it. Okay, now this list has a type. Now the type that we are using is called array list. The reason we are using an array list is because this grows dynamically. We do not need to allocate size for this. The next condition that I'm going to give is when the user doesn't enter any rows. Num rows is the rows that we want to generate this Pascal triangle. So in this case, if the user enters any values that are lesser than or equal to 0, we just return the empty list of list integer. We just return it as it is. The next thing that we're going to do here is that you remember that every time a row will start with 1. Every single time, this is what it will have. Every single time. You can see here nums of row is 1, it's 1. So whatever the number it is, whatever how much big the value it is, your first row is gonna be 1. So we are going to directly add triangle.add, but we can't add a directly value. As you remember, this is a list inside a list. Whatever you're going to add in triangle, we should add it as a list. Okay, so that is the function called as list dot of 1. Okay, The next thing that we're going to do is um, we are going to go through a for loop, because to add the for the middle elements, as I already mentioned, that we need to add the middle element, we need to add the previous row values to get the middle element. You can see here the previous row values are added to get the middle element. Now let us see how to do that. So I'll quickly show you guys. So in this, we will use a for loop now. Inside the for loop, we will have a value called as row index. Now this value will represent the row you are in. Okay, the row index is, we will start from the first row because the 0th row is already filled with list of 1. That means we have already added 1 into our list. Okay, so we will be starting with row number 1 and we will be going till the last row. Now that we have written the for loop, now it's time to actually see the logic on how we are going to do this. Remember, I've already mentioned that in this triangle list, you can add only list. So if you want to add anything, like for example, this one, this 2 or this 3 whatever, you have to create a list for this. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so to create a list, we're going to give the list and that type is going to be an integer, and then this is going to be rows. That means this is where we are going to store the rows of our list. Next, we I already mentioned, again I'm telling you, that if you want to access the elements of your previous list, that means, let me say that I've added already a list here in this triangle list, and if I want to access anything from this list and I have to store it in a variable, then that variable data type should also be a list. Imagine that you are obtaining a integer value from a list and you want that value to be stored in a variable. What is the data type you will give that variable? You will give an integer data type because the value that you are retrieving from your list is an integer type. In this case, we are retrieving a data type list integer, so we need to give that value. Next, I'm going to name this as previous row, short form. The previous row will have triangle dot. Okay, this will get me, what this will get me is, this will get me the previous row. So what I have to give here is, I have to give here row index minus 1. That means I will be getting the previous values of my rows. For example, I want the value of my second row, I have to get the value of my first row. If I want the first row, if I'm going to compute the values of the first row, I need the values of my 0th row. That is why I'm giving this. The next thing that we need to do in this, guys, after we created a list and after we done this, we have to start with 1. That means we have to add a value of 1. So row dot add 1. Okay, so our first index will always be 1. Remember that whenever you're starting a new row, every single time your first element is 1. So every single time you start a row, you have to add 1 and then continue with other additions. Now in my next code, I will be writing another for loop. Now you might be wondering why I need to write another for loop. This is the for loop that will actually compute your middle values. Let me show you this very quickly. For int, we are going to use a variable. In this case, let's take a simple variable. J is equal to 1 and j will go till the previous row dot size. And during the dry run, you will easily understand why I'm giving previous row dot size. But for now, let's just see how we compute the values. Int sum, that means we are adding up the previous values. Okay, so previous row dot get. We have to get the previous row values j minus 1 and we'll be again getting the values of our previous row. Now remember the reason that we gave here, triangle dot get row index minus 1. That means we are actually getting the value. Okay, the list. Now this will come out as a list. Now previous row will have a list of values. Okay, now when we're doing sum, we'll actually get values. For example, let's say that previous row has 1 and 1 as a list with them. When they're given j minus 1 and j, they will actually get 1 and 1. That means 1 plus 1 2. So basically you will get the sum as true. Now once you get the sum, you have to immediately add that to your row. Okay, you have to immediately add this to row. That is, we have formed a row. Once you add row.add, that means we have added the sum. Now after this loop finishes, we have computed the middle elements like this: 1 plus 1 2, 1 plus 2 3, 2 plus 1 3. Then you can notice that the edges are 1. That means immediately after you finish the loop, you must again add 1 to your loop, 1 to your row. So you can see here, before we start adding the middle elements, we are adding 1, and after you add your compute your middle elements, you are adding 1 to your row. After this loop finishes, you can know that you are completed. Now it's time to add this to our triangle list. Now after you added the row list to your triangle list, now after the entire for loop, that means the outer for loop is over, we know that the code is also over. So we can just return the entire list. Now this is the code, and this is the example that I've taken. Now first this line will be executed. Now when this line executes, the triangle list of list will have the list of 1. This is already generated when this code runs. Now next, this row index equal to 1, it will enter this for loop. Now when we enter this for loop, the raw index will be 1. Okay, the raw index is 1, and now what happens here is the new array list is created. This line will be executed. The next, this line will execute. Now this will get the raw index minus 1. So the raw index is 1. That means the previous row will get from the triangle array will look like this. From this array, it needs to get the value of the zeroth index. So zeroth index means this is the element. So this is the element. Now this will be stored in the previous row as a list. That means now previous row will have a list of 1. Next, row dot add 1. That means in the row a list will be there. In that list 1 will be added. Now next, this line will be executed. This for loop, j is 1, j is less than previous row dot size. In the first time when j is 1 and the previous row dot size, that means the size of this list will be 1. This time this for loop will not be executed because j is 1 and j should be less than 1. In this case, j is not less than 1. J is 1. So this for loop will not be executed. Instead, in the row, again 1 will be added. So now as 1 is added, the new row list will look like 1, 1. Now this 1, 1 will be added to a triangle list. So your triangle will look like this. In the triangle list, 1 will be already generated and the next row 1, 1 will be added. Let's talk about the next case. Now the triangle list will look like 1, 1, 1. Now this is how the triangle list will look like. Next, again, this for loop will run. Row index will now be 2. Row index will be 2. Now again a new row empty array list is created, and in the previous row we will have triangle.get 2 minus 1. That means we will be getting the previous row 0. This is 0th index and this is the first index. So now this previous row will have the previous list that we wanted, that is 1, 1. Now row dot add, that means inside the row we will have the first list 1. Now int j is equal to 1 and j is less than previous row dot size. The previous row size is 2, so this for loop is condition is accepted, and once it goes inside the sum, previous row dot get j minus 1. That means previous row is this one and it will get j minus 1. So j is 1. So j minus 1 is 0 and j is 1. Okay, this is 0, this is 1. J minus 1 is 0. So previous row dot get the 0th element is 1 plus previous row dot get 0. Oh, sorry, j is 1. I'm really sorry, j is 1. So this will go and get this value here. So this value and this value. So both of them are added. Now this sum is now 2. Now this is added to this line will be executed. So this value will be added here. So that is 1, 2. Okay. So next row dot add is 1. So now our new row, this will come out of the for loop because previous row dot size is 2. So j must be less than 2. So when j is incremented, it becomes 2. 2 is not less than 2. So the for loop will get exited and row dot add. Now row will be added. How? 1, 2, and the next value is 1. Now this will be added to the triangle. Now this is our new triangle. Now after this, row index will become 3, and this list integer will be new row will be created, and this previous row will get the before row index minus 1. That means this is going to get the second element. Okay, so how the new values will look like means the row value, the row will be a new empty list will be created, and your previous row will have the second element from the triangle list. So 1, 2, 1. The reason is that the row index value is 3. So we'll get the previous value of that because we compute the previous values together. Now row dot add 1. So inside your row, we will have 1 already added. Now inside this for loop j is equal to 1 and j less than previous row dot size in j plus plus, this will be 1. So now j value is 1 and your previous row dot size is 3. So j will run from 1 to 3. The sum is equal to previous row dot get j minus 1 and j. So when j is 1, it will get the value of 0 and 1 index when it's 1. So when j is 1, your sum will be 3. The sum will be 3. Now when j becomes 2, we know that 2 is less than 3. That means still we are inside the loop. So we're still inside the loop. So when j is equal to 2, the sum will be j minus 1 plus previous row dot get j. That means 2 minus 1 is 1 and previous row dot get 1. That means we'll get the first element and we will get the second element as well. So the sum will be again 3. And remember, every single time you compute the values, the row will be updated. So row is equal to, actually when j is equal to 1, you'll immediately add them up. So 1, 3, then after your j value becomes 2, again the list will be updated. And this is the list. After this for loop is finished. After this for loop is over, 1 will be added again to this row. So the row will be again updated to 1, 3, 3, 1. Now after this row is updated, in the final list, triangle list, you will add this final list there. Again, the same thing goes here. We created an empty list after this for loop inside. We are still in this for loop because row index will now become 4, and this is the final condition because 4 is still less than 5, which is num rows. So still we are inside this loop. Now inside this list, empty list is created, and in the previous row we will be getting the row index, the previous element. So in the triangle, this is 0th, this is first value, this is second, and this is the third one. As our row index is 4, we will have the third value. The third value in our triangle list will be added to our previous row list. So now this is the list we will be adding. Now once you add this, now inside the row we will add 1. So 1 will be, I'm so sorry, 1 will be added inside the list. Now let's go inside the for loop. So after this condition is over, the for loop will be executed. Now inside this for loop there will be j will run from first value till the previous row minus one value. The previous row has a size of 4, so this will run from 1, 2 for 1, for 2, and for 3. So all these three j values your loop will run. When j is 1, it will add the previous row dot get j minus 1, that is 0th value, plus previous row dot get j value, that is 0 and the first value. That means this is the 0th value and this is the first value. So when you add, you will get value as 4. So your row will be 1 comma 4. This is the first list. Next, when the value is 2, it will add up j minus 1, that is 3, this value 3, and then this value that is 2. So 3 plus 3 is 9. So your next list will look like this: 1, 4, and 9. When j value is 3, the sum will be j minus 1 value, which is 2, second value, and jth value, which is 1 here. So 3 and 1. That means it will add up and give you 4 again. So 1 comma 4 comma 9, again you will get the value 4. Now this won't stop here, because you know that after this for loop is done, you will be doing row dot add 1. So to your this list, you will be adding 1 comma 4 comma 9 comma 4. So 4 comma 1. Now this is going to be your final list. Now after this condition is over, triangle dot add row, this will be executed, and now row index plus plus will be executed. So this will become 5, and this will be condition checked. Row index is less than num row, 5 is not less than 5. So this for loop will be exited and the triangle will be returned. That means this is the value that will be the final output of our problem.